Shopkeeper, the last piece of brocade cloud has been wrapped. Do you want to send it to the guest now or? The voice of the boy Xiaoma pulled my thoughts back from the raindrops outside the window. I turned around and looked at the busy scene in the store, nodding with satisfaction. Just send it directly to Lord Zhang's residence. Remember to remind Madam that this piece of brocade cloud is delicate and must not be exposed to the sun. Got it. This exquisite brocade workshop was set up by me. 5 years have passed. After escaping from the suffocating cage in the capital city and coming to this misty Jiangnan town, I, Su Jinsi, have finally become the person I want to be. I used to be the wife of Dingyuan Marquis Gu Qinyuan. A marriage bestowed by the late emperor tied me, the daughter of the imperial tutor, together with the young general with great military achievements. I thought that as long as I managed it with my heart, even the coldest stone could be warmed, but I was wrong. In Gu Shenyuan's heart, there had already lived a person, the white moonlight, who gave him a steamed bun when he was down and out in his youth. Lu Ruyan. After 3 years of marriage, he treated me with respect like ice. It was not until Lu Ruyan appeared in the Marquis manor with a weak waist and teary eyes and told me that she was pregnant with Gu Shenyuan's child that I realized that these 3 years of mine were just a joke. Later, she unintentionally fell down from the high steps, with blood all over the ground. The spearhead pointed directly at me, who was behind her at that time. I was unable to defend myself. Gu Shenyuan's slap made a buzzing sound in my ears and completely shattered the last bit of my infatuation. Su Jinsi, you jealous woman. If Ruoyan has any mishap, I will make you pay with your life. He held the unconscious Lu Ruyan in his arms. The murderous look in his eyes is still fresh in my memory. I didn't cry. I just calmly took out the already written divorce document. He was stunned and then sneered. With a big stroke of his pen, he signed his name. Get out. Never show up in front of me again. This is his final verdict on our 3-year marriage. I left with nothing. With the unique embroidery art passed down in my Su family and the small life that had just quietly sprouted in my belly, and I didn't even know myself. I came to the Jiangnan area. I named him Nianan, Su Nianan. May he be safe and smooth all his life. And may I be able to forget that man and live a stable life from now on. Mother, hug. The soft voice came from beside my leg. I looked down and met a pair of big black eyes. Nianan stretched out his chubby little hand and looked up at me with his face raised. This face is simply a carbon copy of Gu Qinyuan. The same sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes. The same straight nose. It's just that there is a little less coldness and a little more innocence of a child. My heart softened, and I picked him up. What did you learn from Masterly today? Zihu Ziyi. My head is so dizzy. This is my current life. I have a thriving career and a cute and obedient son. I am rich and peaceful. The past in the capital city has long been sealed in my heart. However, the peaceful life is destined to be broken. That afternoon, an unusual guest came to the embroidery workshop. He was dressed in black martial arts attire, with a burly figure and a cold and solemn face. He was wearing a long knife at his waist. It was obvious that he was a martial arts practitioner. He didn't choose fabrics or embroidery products like ordinary guests. Instead, he walked slowly in the store with sharp eyes sweeping across every place. Finally, his eyes fell on me. My heart skipped a beat. This look is too familiar. It is Mo Ying, the personal dark guard of Gu Qinyuan. Why is he here? I forced myself to be calm and stepped forward with a smile. May I ask, sir, if you want to choose something for the female relatives at home? Mo Ying's gaze shifted away from my face. He lowered his eyes and cupped his hands. His voice as calm as a still lake. My husband, Boss Su. May your business thrive. The way he called Boss Su was a bit stiff. Thanks to Buddha, I responded indifferently, and a warning bell rang in my heart. The people of Gu Qinyuan, after 5 years, suddenly appearing in my embroidery workshop is definitely not a coincidence. I just passed by. Hearing that the Su embroidery in Jinxiu workshop is the best in Jiangnan, I came here specially to pay a visit. Mo Ying's explanation was seamless. I sneered in my heart. Passing by, from the capital city to Jiangnan, this road is really long. Just at this time, Nianan ran out from the inner hall, holding a piece of osmanthus cake in his hand. Mother, eat cake. Mo Ying's gaze froze instantly. He stared fixedly at Nianan's face. On that unchanging icy face, cracks appeared for the first time. Shock, horror, disbelief, all kinds of emotions intertwined, making him freeze all over. My heart sank. I immediately protected Nianan behind me and my voice became cold. If you have nothing to do, please leave. Our shop is closing. Mo Ying seemed to come back to his senses. His complex gaze shuttled back and forth between me and Nianan. Finally, he took a deep breath and cupped his hands again. I'm sorry for the disturbance. After saying that, He turned around and left in a hurry, his back even had a hint of embarrassment. I held Nianan in my arms and watched him disappear at the street corner. My heart kept sinking. I know that Guqinyuan is coming. The peaceful life I have lived for 5 years is about to set off a huge wave. But I am no longer the Su Jinsi who could be manipulated 5 years ago. Whoever dares to snatch my son, I will dare to fight with him to the death. Even if that person is the Dingyuan Marquis who wields great power in the court and is Nianan's biological father. Capital City, Dingyuan Marquis Manor. In the study, Guqinyuan threw the wolf hair brush in his hand restlessly aside. On the excellent Xian paper, a glaring ink spot splashed open. For 5 years, he has been regretting every moment. It is not the regret of divorcing Su Jinsi, but the regret of why he had that trace of compassion and let Lu Ruyan enter the mansion. Lu Ruyan was indeed his white moonlight. When he was a teenager, he was plotted against by his political enemy and seriously injured, and it was that thin girl who gave him a steamed bun and let him survive until the rescue soldiers arrived. He always remembered this kindness. So when Lu Ruyan came to the door and cried about being forced by her family to marry an old man as a concubine, he softened his heart. He placed her in the mansion and gave her the identity of a cousin and promised to find her a good marriage. He thought Su Jinsi would understand. She was always so gentle and reasonable and never made him worry, but he didn't expect that her reaction would be so great. Later, everything that happened was more like a runaway nightmare. Lu Ruyan's miscarriage, Su Jinsi's resoluteness, and that divorce document were like thorns, deeply piercing into his heart. In these 5 years, Lu Ruyan still looks weak and unable to take care of herself, but he no longer has any pity for her. He even more and more frequently thinks of Su Jinsi, thinking of the silhouette of her embroidering under the lamp, thinking of her gentle act of stirring soup for him, thinking of the sly smile she occasionally showed. He found that he was actually about to forget her appearance. Marquis, Mo Ying's voice sounded outside the door. Come in. Mo Ying pushed the door and entered, bowed and saluted, with an unprecedented serious expression. Found out. Guqinyuan rubbed his eyebrows, and there was a trace of fatigue that was not easy to detect in his voice. After the divorce back then, he didn't think about looking for her, but she disappeared like evaporating from the world, and the Su family also said they didn't know her whereabouts. He sent people to look for her for 2 years and got nothing. In the end, he could only give up. Recently, he always dreams of her at night, dreaming of the back of her turning around and leaving, resolute and lonely, against his will. He asked Mo Ying to go and check her whereabouts again. He told himself that he just wanted to know how she made a living. After all, they were married once. He didn't want her to be homeless and die of hunger and cold. Returning to Marquis, Mo Ying's voice was a bit dry. He paused as if organizing his words. The former lady, Miss Su, is now in Suzhou, Jiangnan. She opened an embroidery workshop named Xianxia Workshop, and the business is very good. Well, Guqinyuan responded faintly. The stone hanging in his heart seemed to have fallen by half. It's good that she is doing well. He picked up the teacup and was about to end this topic. However, the next words of Mo Ying made the celadon teacup in his hand fall to the ground with a loud crash. Marquis, the former lady opened an embroidery workshop in Jiangnan. She is also accompanied by a 3-year-old child. The eyebrows and eyes are exactly the same as yours. Marquis, there was a deathly silence in the study. Guqinyuan suddenly stood up. The tall figure trembled slightly due to the intense emotional fluctuations. He grabbed Mo Ying's collar and asked with red eyes, "What did you say?" This subordinate saw it with my own eyes. That child is at least 3 years old. Calculating the days, Mo Ying said with difficulty. It was born not long after the lady. The former lady left the Marquis Manor, and his appearance is exactly the same as the portrait of you, Marquis, when you were a child. 3 years, 5 years since the separation. Su Jinsi, you have such great courage. A burst of anger of being deceived and concealed, mixed with a hint of ecstasy that he himself did not even notice, instantly broke through Guqinyuan's reason. She dares to hide his offspring privately. Prepare the horse, go to Jiangnan. He almost roared out the order. He had to go to see her immediately. He had to ask clearly what she wanted to do. On the 3rd day after Mo Ying left, the small water town in Suzhou Prefecture ushered in an unprecedented turmoil. A long convoy of horses, with strict guards and magnificent ceremonies, stopped at the entrance of the embroidery workshop. The leading carriage was made of golden nanma throughout. Tasseled palace lanterns were hanging at the 4 corners. On the curtain of the carriage, a flamboyant Gu character was embroidered with gold thread. People from the whole town poured out to watch the fun and pointed at the magnificent convoy. My heart sank to the bottom at that moment. What should come will always come. I asked the clerk to close the shop door and coaxed Nianan to sleep in the inner hall. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat quietly in the hall. Bang! The thick wooden door of the embroidery workshop was kicked open by someone. A man in a dark blue brocade robe and a straight figure stepped in against the light, with a chill and anger all over his body. After 5 years of separation, Gu Xingyuan is even more cold and imposing than in memory. Time seems to favor him exceptionally, only depositing a deeper sense of might on him. On that extremely handsome face, there is a look of impending doom and viciousness. His gaze is like a sharp sword, instantly locking onto me who was sitting calmly. Su Jinsi. He opened his mouth, and his voice was hoarse, as if it had been tempered with ice. I raised my eyes and met his gaze, and replied calmly, "Your Highness, the great arrival. I failed to greet you from a distance." My calmness seemed to enrage him even more. He strode up to me, looking down at me from a high position, and the anger in his eyes was almost about to swallow me. "Where is the child?" He got straight to the point without a single word of nonsense. "What child?" I pretended to be puzzled, picked up the teacup and gently blew on the heat above it. "Your Highness, don't you have the wrong place? My embroidery workshop does not sell children." "Su Jinsi," he roared and grabbed my wrist with such force that it was almost about to crush my bones. "Don't play dumb with this prince. Where is the child you hid?" There was intense pain in my wrist, but I didn't even frown. I looked at him coldly and said word by word, "Marquis, please make it clear. 5 years ago, it was you who signed the divorce document with your own hand and drove me out of Marquis Manor. From that moment on, I Su Jinsi have no more connection with your Dingyuan Marquis Manor. My child naturally has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with me." Gu Qingyuan laughed angrily. He leaned close to me, and his handsome face enlarged in front of my eyes. The madness in his eyes made me frightened. "Look at this Marquis' face and then look at that child's face. Do you dare to say it has nothing to do with me? Marquis, I'm afraid you have forgotten." I looked at him fearlessly and curled the corners of my lips into a sarcastic arc. "When we divorced 5 years ago, you and I ended our relationship. Even if there is a child in my womb, it is only mine. Su Jinsi, it has nothing to do with you, Dingyuan Marquis Gu Qingyuan, and has nothing to do with your upcoming concubine Lu Ruyan. You." The 3 words Lu Ruyan were like a needle, accurately hitting his sore spot. He grabbed my wrist and increased the strength a bit. Biting his teeth, he said through gritted teeth, "Do you think you can threaten me with a child? Su Jinsi, I tell you, if you want to use him to obtain wealth and honor, you are dreaming." When I heard this, it was like hearing a big joke. I couldn't help laughing. "Wealth and honor? Marquis, you are overestimating yourself too much." I pointed my other finger at the room full of brocade. "You open your eyes and look clearly. This brocade workshop was built by me, Su Jinsi, with my own hands and feet. Now I am not short of money or fame. With my own abilities, I can make my son and I live the best life. Your wealth and glory, your Marquis Manor, are worthless in my eyes." This sentence is the unwillingness and pride that I have suppressed for 5 years. I am no longer the secluded woman who needs to look up to him and wait for his pity. I am the owner of Su Brocade Workshop and Su Jinsi who can support a piece of sky with 1 needle and 1 thread. Gu Qingyuan was completely stunned. He looked at me, at this woman with clear eyes, sharp words and full of self-confidence that he had never seen before. His eyes were full of strangeness and shock. Is this still the Su Jinsi who always lowered her eyebrows and spoke softly in front of him? "Mother." Just when we were at an impasse, a sleepy call came from the inner hall. Gu Shenyuan's body trembled violently. His sight instantly passed through me and focused on the source of the sound. My heart tightened. I shook off his hand hard and turned around and walked quickly into the inner hall. Nianan rubbed his eyes and sat up dazedly from the bed. I quickly held him in my arms and comforted him softly. "Mother is here. Nianan is not afraid." "Mother, is there any bad person outside?" he asked in a low voice. Obviously, he was frightened by the movement just now. "No." The wind blew the door open. I patted him on the back gently. However, the next second, Gu Shenyuan's tall figure had already appeared at the door. When his eyes met the small face of Nianan that was very similar to his, time seemed to stand still. The surging anger in his eyes was extinguished in an instant, replaced by a very complex emotion: shock, remorse, heartache, and a kind of throbbing that he couldn't explain clearly and was connected by blood. Nianan was frightened by the terrifying sight of this tall man and shrank his small body into my arms, looking at him timidly. What's your name?" Gu Shenyuan's voice trembled slightly, which was hard to detect. I pressed Nianan's head against my chest and said coldly, "Marquis, you have seen enough. You can leave. My son is timid and can't stand your fright of this big Buddha." Gu Qingyuan ignored me. All his attention was attracted by that child. This is his son. He missed his son for 3 whole years. Back then, he personally drove his wife who was carrying his child out of the house. When he was furious about the fake pregnancy of another woman in the capital city, his wife gave birth to their child alone thousands of miles away in the south of the Yangtze River. A sense of overwhelming remorse came like a flood, almost drowning him. He looked at the child in my arms and then at my cold face. There was a dull pain in his heart. He knew that he wanted to take this child back to the Marquis Manor and make up for the father's love of these 3 years. But he also knew that Su Jinsi in front of him would never agree. This Marquis will not leave. He took a deep breath as if making a certain decision and looked at me with deep eyes. Before you agree to let the child recognize his ancestors and return to the ancestral temple, this Marquis will live here. Gu Qingyuan did what he said. Instead of staying in the post station arranged by the government office, he rented the entire floor of the inn opposite my embroidery workshop. For a while, our small water town was completely boiling because of the arrival of the Prince of Dingyuan. Various rumors and gossips were flying like catkins in spring. Some people said that I was the abandoned wife of the Marquis. Now that I have a child and my mother depends on her son's status, I am going to fly onto the branch and become a phoenix. Some people also said that I was shameless. I stole the Marquis seed and ran away back then. Now the Marquis is here to clean up the family. These words entered my left ear and exited my right ear. I didn't take them to heart at all. Tongues grow on others' bodies, and life is lived by oneself. As long as they don't dance in front of me, I'm too lazy to pay attention. But I didn't expect that trouble would take the initiative to come to the door. Another large-scale embroidery shop in the town is named Wanshou Pavilion. Its owner, Mrs. Qian, is a typical person who flatters the powerful and changes with the wind. On ordinary days, when she saw that my business was booming, she didn't hesitate to play dirty tricks behind my back, but because her skills were inferior to mine, she couldn't cause any waves. Now that Gu Qingyuan is here, she immediately feels that her opportunity has come. On this day, I was checking the accounts in the shop. Mrs. Qian twisted her bucket-like waist and walked in swaggeringly with 2 maids. Yo, Boss Su, it's already past noon. Why is there not a single customer in the shop? She held a handkerchief and spoke in a strange tone. I didn't even raise my head. Mrs. Qian, if you have the leisure to come here, it's better to go back and keep an eye on your embroiderers. Otherwise, you'll embroider Mandarin ducks into ducks again. This is to satirize her for snatching in order to congratulate the wife of the county magistrate last time. As a result, the embroidery work was too poor and was returned in public. Losing all face, Madame Qian's face turned red and then white. She immediately sneered and said, Su Jinsi, don't be complacent. Who doesn't know that you are a divorced wife driven out by your husband's family? Now that the Marquis has come in person, do you think he came to take you back? Pooey, you such a fickle woman also deserve to enter the gate of the Marquis Manor. Her voice was sharp and immediately attracted many onlookers outside the door. I finally raised my head and looked at her coldly with my eyes. Boss Qian, you can eat indiscriminately, but you can't speak indiscriminately. I and the Marquis are divorced, not dismissed. If you dare to talk nonsense and smear my reputation, don't blame me for tearing your mouth apart. You dare. Madame Qian, relying on the large number of people, became more arrogant. Do you think it's amazing that you have ingratiated yourself with the wife of the county magistrate? Tell you, I have already hooked up with the people around the Marquis. The Marquis said that he hates the most is a woman like you with deep scheming and using children as chips. Your good days are over. After saying that, she tossed her handkerchief triumphantly and turned around to loudly say to the onlookers outside the door, everyone can see clearly. The owner of this brocade workshop has an improper conduct. Who dares to buy her things? Be careful of getting a stinking smell. In the future, the embroidery business in Suzhou Prefecture will all depend on our Wanshou Pavilion. These words can be said to be very malicious. This is not a simple verbal dispute anymore. It is a naked commercial suppression. Sure enough, in the following few days, the business of the embroidery workshop plummeted. The guests who had originally ordered embroidered items came one after another to cancel their orders. The embroiderers under my command were also in a state of panic. Madame Qian said that whoever works here is against her. Several sisters have already been poached by her at a high price. The lead embroiderer Zhang said to me with concern. I comforted them and said, don't worry, those who want to leave can leave. Those who stay, the wages will be increased by 30. Does Madame Qian think that she can bring me down like this? She underestimates me. Su Jinsi too much. I closed the shop door and refused all visitors. I hung a sign that said concentrating on research and new products will be released in the inner hall. 3 days later, I took a brand new design drawing and gathered all the remaining embroiderers. This is a new embroidery method I have just conceived. I call it double-sided and three-varied embroidery. I unfolded the drawing, and on it was a lotus pond carp picture. The so-called double-sided and three-varied embroidery means that on the same base material, both the front and back sides can embroider two different patterns, and the color matching and stitching methods are all different. For example, the front side is a lotus pond in the daytime, and the back side is a carp leaping under the moon. Each stitch does not interfere with each other, but it is integrated. The embroiderers were all stunned. Double-sided embroidery is already rare. This double-sided different embroidery is simply unheard of. Shopkeeper, how is this possible? Aunt Zhang stammered and asked. I smiled. Of course it is possible. This is not a technique original to this era. Instead, when I was a graduate student in fashion design in my previous life and was researching ancient weaving and embroidery techniques, I saw this theoretical concept in a tattered ancient book. After coming to this world, it took me a whole year to restore and improve it. This is my biggest trump card, my real golden finger. I originally wanted to wait a little longer and introduce it after the foundation of embroidery workshop was more stable, but now, Madame Qian and Gu Qingyuan have forced me to bring it out ahead of time. Nothing is impossible. I disassembled the key secrets such as needlework, threading, and color matching one by one and patiently taught them to them. Starting from today, we will stop all our current work and devote ourselves to conquering this lotus pond koi picture. 1 month later, on the governor's birthday, I want to make it a gift for the governor's wife and let people all over Jiangnan see what real top-notch embroidery art is. My words were like a shot of strong medicine and brightened everyone's eyes. This month, the gate of embroidery workshop was tightly closed, regardless of the rumors outside. Gu Qingyuan would come every day. He never forces his way in. He just stands at the door for a while. Sometimes he brings some novel toys or delicate pastries and says they are for that child. I don't accept them all. He is not angry at all. He puts down the things and leaves. It seems that he has also heard about the matter of Wancher Pavilion suppressing me. Mo Ying once implicitly proposed that he could help me solve Madame Qian. I refused. I appreciate the kindness of the Marquis, but my business, I will handle it myself. Don't worry about it. I don't need his charity. I don't want to have any more connections with him. Gu Qingyuan looked at me with complicated eyes. He seemed to want to say something, but finally left silently. He probably discovered for the first time that in this world, there are things that he can't solve with power and money. For example, the integrity of Suzhensi. After a month, the prefect's birthday banquet, the important people in Suzhou Prefecture gathered together. As the representative of local merchants, Madame Qian proudly presented her congratulatory gift, 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix embroidered by the top embroiderers of Wancher Pavilion for several months. The embroidery work is exquisite and attracts a lot of admiration. Madame Qian glanced at me proudly. That look seemed to say, Suzhensi, what can you compete with me with? I ignored her and just waited quietly. When the master of ceremonies shouted the embroidery workshop's congratulatory gift, I stepped forward in person and presented a beautiful picture frame made of rosewood. In the picture frame is a plain circular silk fan. On the fan surface, there is nothing. The whole audience was in an uproar. Is this Suzhensi crazy, presenting a white fan to offer congratulations on the prefect's birthday? It seems that she was suppressed by Wanshou Pavilion and became stupid. She's giving up in despair. Madame Qian even laughed with her body shaking like a flower branch. Suzhensi, are you here to make trouble? In front of the prefect, you dare to be so presumptuous. The prefect's face also looked a bit ugly, but I was not in a hurry. I smiled slightly at the prefect's wife and said, Madam, please allow Jinsi to keep a secret. This fan has another world inside. Saying that, I gently turned the fan in the puzzled eyes of everyone. A miracle happened at this moment. The originally empty fan surface instantly glowed and a vivid daytime lotus pond picture appeared out of thin air. The green lotus leaves and pink lotus flowers seemed to be covered with morning dewdrops and shone brightly under the light. My God, what's going on? Is this a magic trick? The whole audience exclaimed. I did not stop and turned my wrist again. On the other side of the fan, what is presented is an entirely different scene under the dark blue night sky. The moonlight is like water, and several golden koi are playing in the water. The luster on their scale seems to be flowing. The front side is a daytime lotus pond. The reverse side is a moonlight koi. One is quiet and the other is moving. One is bright and the other is dark. The patterns, stitching techniques, and color matching are all different, but they coexist perfectly on the same thin silk cloth like cicada wings. This is double-sided 3 different embroidery. An old man with white beard and hair stood up excitedly. He is a tribute in the Jiangnan Weaving Bureau and is the most knowledgeable. I have only seen records in ancient books and thought it had been lost. I didn't expect to be able to see it with my own eyes today. It's amazing. It's really amazing. The whole audience was instantly plunged into a deathly silence. Everyone was shocked beyond measure by the scene that subverted their cognition. The wife of the prefect even walked off the stage excitedly, holding up that fan with trembling hands and looking at it back and forth, unable to put it down. The face of Mrs. Qian was already as white as paper. She looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. Her lips were quivering and she couldn't say a word. At this moment, all the rumors and slander, all the business suppression, have become a joke. In the face of absolute technical barriers, all those underhanded tricks that are not worthy of the stage seemed so ridiculous and so vulnerable. I stood there, receiving the gazes from all directions, mixed with awe and admiration. My heart was calm. I have achieved it. I not only kept the embroidery workshop, but also made it reach an unprecedented height. My eyes inadvertently swept over a corner in the crowd. Gu Qingyuan was standing there. He was not wearing his Marquis court attire representing power. He was just wearing a simple ordinary outfit. He was looking at me quietly. In his deep eyes, there were surging storms that I couldn't understand. Shock, appreciation, regret, and a hint of loss that even he himself didn't notice. He probably finally understood what kind of woman he drove away 5 years ago. And this woman and he can never be together again. After the prefect's birthday banquet, the embroidery workshop became famous overnight. The sudden appearance of double-sided and three-variety embroidery caused a great sensation in the entire Jiangnan region and even the capital city. Orders came like snowflakes, and the threshold was almost broken. I had to announce that all high-end customizations must be reserved 6 months in advance. Those few embroideresses who once betrayed me came crying and begging to come back. I flatly refused them without mercy. And Wang Xiuge, because of imitating my embroidery method like a frog trying to imitate a phoenix but ending up looking like a dog that can't even draw a tiger, has completely become a laughingstock in the industry. There are few visitors and it is on the verge of going bankrupt. This is the best slap in the face for Madame Qian. My life seems to have returned to the right track and is even more glorious than before. There is only one thing that makes me quite troubled. That is Gu Qingyuan. He seems to have completely attached himself to me. He is no longer the high and mighty Dingyuan Marquis. Instead, he is like a rogue. He comes to the embroidery workshop on time every day. He doesn't say what he is doing. He just brings a stool and sits at the entrance, saying that he is guarding the door for me. His face is a living sign, attracting countless young women and wives to come and watch. This seriously affects my business. He is always trying to get close to Nianan. Today he sent a small sword that can cut iron like mud. Tomorrow he led a pony with extraordinary spirit. After all, Nianan is a child. Although he listens to me obediently, he has changed from being afraid of this strange uncle who always gives him gifts to being curious. On this day, Nianan came running with a Lu-bound lock given by Gu Qingyuan and asked me, "Mother, why does that uncle come every day? Does he want to be my father?" Childish words have no taboos, but it pricks my heart. I squatted down and looked at him seriously. "Nianan, do you like him?" Nianan thought for a while and shook his head honestly. "I don't like him. He always has a straight face and is very fierce, but the toy he gave is very fun." I breathed a sigh of relief and touched his head. "Nianan only needs to remember that you have your mother. Mother will protect you and buy you all the fun toys." Well, Nianan loves mother the most. He kissed me loudly on the face. I held my son in my arms and my heart was soft. For Nianan's sake, I must solve this big trouble of Gu Qingyuan as soon as possible. However, before I had time to come up with a solution, a person I least wanted to see came to the door by himself. That day, a carriage decorated very luxuriously but with a hint of vulgarity stopped at the entrance of the embroidery workshop. The curtain was lifted, and a woman in a pink gauze skirt, with a slender figure and a pitiful face, got off with the help of the maid. It was Lu Ruyan. Why did she come? My brows were tightly furrowed. As soon as Lu Ruyan entered the door, she saw Gu Qingyuan sitting at the door watching the door. Her watery eyes immediately filled with tears as if she had suffered great injustice. "Marquis," her voice trembled and she was on the verge of crying. How can you leave Yenru alone in the capital city and run here? Yenru misses you so much." Gu Qingyuan saw her and his eyebrows furrowed instantly. A hint of undisguised annoyance flashed in his eyes. "What are you doing here?" During these 5 years, he had already seen through Lu Yanru's true face clearly. The so-called weakness and kindness were just her camouflage to win sympathy. The reason why he still kept her was that one was because of the life-saving grace back then, And the other was because she was carrying the title of having had a miscarriage for him. If he drove her away at this time, it was inevitable that people would talk, but this patience was obviously about to run out. Lu Yanru was stung by his indifferent attitude and tears fell down one after another. Instead of answering, she turned her eyes to me. That look was full of jealousy and enmity. Sister Sue, she put on a grief-stricken expression and walked towards me. I know you still resent me in your heart, but how can you use a child with an unknown origin to deceive the Marquis and take him away from me? Her words were neither loud nor small, but enough for everyone inside and outside the store to hear clearly. A child with an unknown origin. I sneered and walked out from behind the counter, looking down at her performance. Miss Lu, I think you have been traveling for a long time and your mind is not clear. I won't argue with you, but if you dare to talk nonsense again, I don't mind letting you know how cold the water in Suzhou Prefecture is. There is not a trace of warmth in my voice. Lu Ruyan was frightened and took a step back by my aura, but she soon straightened her chest as if she had grasped some handle of mine. You are guilty, Su Jinsi. Don't think I don't know. 5 years ago, you were driven out of the Marquis Manor and had nothing. How could you afford a child? This child is clearly a wild breed you picked up from somewhere and deliberately made him look like the Marquis in order to have a chance to return to the Marquis Manor. This slander that distorts the truth is simply ridiculous. But before I had time to open my mouth, a clear and warm voice sounded from the door. Miss Liu's words make no sense. The character of Jinxi's sister is known to everyone in Suzhou Prefecture. She is independent and tenacious. She founded the Jingshou workshop with her own true abilities. As for Nianan, that is the child I watched grow up. Whether he is the biological son of Boss Su, we, these neighbors and fellow villagers, have the most say. I looked back and it was Wen Yushu, the gentle and jade-like young master of the Wen family. The Wen family is a scholarly family in Suzhou Prefecture. They have served as officials for generations and have a clean family style. Wen Yushu is the only son of the Wen family. He is extremely talented and has a noble character. He is the dream lover of all the girls in Suzhou Prefecture. Because of the relationship with the wife of the prefect, I have had a few encounters with him. He quite appreciates me and has proposed to buy my embroidery works at a high price several times. He also wrote words for the embroidery workshop. I didn't expect that he would stand up and speak for me at this time. Lu Ruyan obviously didn't expect that a Qinggong Ling would suddenly appear on the way. And it was such a handsome and extraordinary noble young master. She was stunned for a moment and then put on her best white lotus posture. Young master, you may have been deceived by her. This woman is the best at bewitching people. Wen Yushu just smiled faintly and was very graceful. I only believe my own eyes. But you, young lady, as soon as you came, you spoke harshly to Jinxi's sister and slandered a 3-year-old child without any reason. Such behavior is a bit unworthy of your status. His words were reasonable and well-founded. Without using a single dirty word, he made Lu Ruyan speechless and her pretty face turned red like pig liver. At this time, Gu Xingyuan standing aside had a face as black as the bottom of a pot. His eyes scanned back and forth between me and Wen Yushu. That look was like a poison knife. Wen Yushu's affectionate Jinxi younger sister was like a needle, piercing deeply into his heart. When he saw Wen Yushu defending me, the flash of gratitude in my eyes, when he saw us standing together, so talented and beautiful, like a pair of perfect lovers, a panic and fury instantly seized him. This woman, without his knowing, already had other men to shelter her from the wind and rain. Su Jinxi. Gu Qingyuan strode forward and grabbed my wrist with such great force that it seemed he wanted to pull me into his arms whole. You tell me clearly, who is this man? He lowered his voice and almost gritted out these words. In his eyes was undisguised, crazy jealousy. I looked at him, looking at this man who had just been sarcastic to me and then became furious because of other men. I just felt extremely ironic. Gu Qingyuan, what right do you have? What qualifications do you have to question me? I shook off his hand with force and took a step back. Standing beside Wen Yushu, I looked at him and said word by word clearly, Lord Ho, this is Mr. Wen, my friend. As for you, I paused and curved the corner of my lip into a cold smile. What are you? Are you worthy of meddling in my affairs? What are you? This sentence is like a bolt of lightning, directly striking on Gu Shenyuan's head. He froze in place, his tall body swayed slightly, his face instantly turned pale. He looked at me with eyes full of unbelievable pain. He has been in military service for half his life and has great power in the court. No one has ever dared to be so disrespectful to him. And this woman who used to obey him in everything, actually trampled on his dignity under the feet of another man in front of him. When Lu Ruyan saw this, a trace of complacency flashed in her eyes. She immediately put on that appearance of being considerate and went forward to support Gu Shenyuan's arm. Lord Ho, don't be angry, she is just confused for a moment. You have given up your body for her. How can she hurt your heart like this? Get away. Gu Qingyuan suddenly shook off her hand. The force was so great that Lu Ruyan staggered and fell to the ground. Now, he doesn't want to see this woman at all. His heart and eyes are full of my words. What are you? Yes, what is he? A former husband who drove her away with his own hands 5 years ago. The culprit who made her alone and pregnant and flowed to a foreign land. A person who still tries to force her to turn back with power and self-righteous compensation until today. What qualifications does he have? When Yushu saw that the atmosphere was tense, he took a step forward and protected me behind him. He cupped his hands towards Gu Qingyuan and said in a calm and composed manner, Lord Ho, Jinxie girl is just an ordinary businessman now. She just wants to live a peaceful and stable life. If you really care about her, you shouldn't be so aggressive and disturb her peace. Her business is none of your business. Gu Shenyuan's eyes were red, like a raging male lion. Jealousy was gnawing at his sanity like a viper. I looked at this absurd scene in front of me and only felt extremely tired. I don't want to get entangled with them any longer. Master Wen, thank you for coming to the rescue today. I nodded slightly to him to express my gratitude. The embroidery workshop has something to do today. We are sorry for not entertaining guests. Xiaoma, see off the guests. This is a blatant eviction order, including Dingyuan Ho Gu Qingyuan and his delicate white lotus. Gu Shenyuan's body was shaking violently. He stared at me intently as if trying to find the slightest bit of reluctance or wavering on my face. However, there was none. On my face, there was only cold annoyance. Finally, he seemed to have all his strength drained. He turned around dejectedly and left in a lost state. Lu Ruyan got up from the ground in a state of embarrassment. She gave me a resentful look and then chased after with tears streaming down her face. A farce finally came to an end. Jinxie's sister, you. When Yushu looked at me with concern, I'm fine. I smiled at him. Today I owe you a lot. It's just a small favor. When Yushu replied gently, but that Duke Dingyuan doesn't seem like a person who will give up easily. You should be more careful. I nodded. I naturally know that Gu Qingyuan will not give up. But so what? When soldiers come, generals will meet them. When water comes, earth will cover it. I have endured the days when I had nothing. Will I be afraid of a former husband who regrets it? In the inn, Gu Qingyuan sat by the window in silence, with a cold air of keeping people at a distance all around him. Moing stood behind him and didn't even dare to breathe. He saw everything that happened today. The master's loss of self-control, Lu Ruyan's stupidity, and that gentle but heartbreaking Wen Gongzi. He knew that the master's way of chasing his wife was probably 100 times more difficult than he imagined. Moing, Gu Qingyuan finally opened his mouth, and his voice was extremely hoarse. I'm here, going to investigate. Investigate what? The whole process of Lu Ruyan's miscarriage 5 years ago. In Gu Shenyuan's eyes, a coldness that pierced to the bone flashed by. Since she entered the capital, who she met, what she did, especially on that so-called miscarriage night, the maids and old women on duty, the doctor who took the pulse. Not a single detail is allowed to be missed. I want to know the whole truth. He is not a fool. Today's Lu Ruyan's full of loophole slander and Su Jinxi's cold and sarcastic eyes made a long-buried suspicion in his heart completely burst out. Back then, he was blinded by anger. He only saw Lu Ruyan's tears and the blood all over the ground and sentenced Su Jinxi. But now when thinking carefully after calming down, there are many doubts. Su Jinxi is not that kind of person who would harm others out of jealousy. And Lu Ruyan, in these 5 years, he has seen too clearly already. If that incident back then was a fraud from beginning to end, then what did he do? He didn't dare to think further. Moing was shocked in his heart. He immediately understood the meaning of the marquis. Yes, this subordinate will do it immediately. Mo Ying's efficiency is extremely high. 3 days later, a detailed investigation file was placed in front of Gu Qingyuan. He trembled with his hands and flipped through page by page. The more he looked, the paler his face became. The more he looked, the tighter his grip on the paper became, and the knuckles turned bluish-white due to the force. The truth is much uglier and more unbearable than he imagined. Lu Ruyan is not pregnant at all. She bribed the most skilled gynecologist in the capital city who was good at forging and forged the medical record. The so-called blood that night was just chicken blood that she had prepared in advance. The maid who came out to testify against Su Jinxi was a distant relative brought by her from her hometown. After receiving a large sum of hush money, she was sent back to the countryside. Everything is a play she directed and performed herself. She used his guilt for the life-saving grace and his coldness towards Su Jinxi to accurately plan this conspiracy. The purpose is to drive Su Jinsi away and take the position of Marchioness. And he, this self-proclaimed wise and powerful Dingyuan Marquis, was so easily played by a woman between his palms. He drove away his wife who was married in a proper way by himself. He made her leave with nothing when she was pregnant, carrying the bad reputation of a jealous woman and leaving alone to go to a distant place. He made her give birth to their child alone in the motherless Jiangnan, and that culprit, that poisonous woman full of lies, was enjoying the prosperity and wealth safely under his protection for 5 years. Puff. A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out suddenly from Gu Shenyuan's mouth, staining the files on the table red. Boundless remorse and heart-piercing pain, like a huge net, tightly entangled him, making him unable to breathe. He was wrong to the extreme, wrong, unforgivable. Come here, he roared, with a bloody tone in his voice. Bind that Lu Ruoran and throw her into the firewood house, without my order. No one is allowed to see her, and no one is allowed to give her a drop of water or a grain of rice. Now, he just wants to see Su Jinsi immediately. He wants to kneel in front of her and tell her everything, begging for her forgiveness. He stumbled out of the inn and ran towards the embroidery workshop regardless. However, when he ran to the entrance of the embroidery workshop panting, he found that it had been deserted long ago. The gate was tightly locked, with a notice saying the boss is on a long journey attached. He smashed the door like a madman and roared her name. Su Jinsi, Jinsi, open the door. Listen to my explanation. It's my fault. It's all my fault. Come back, please, come back. However, what answered him was only the silent street and the eyes of passers-by looking at him like a madman. At this time, I was sitting on the southbound boat with Nianan, when Yushu's intelligence was very timely. His friend in the government office told him that Gu Qingyuan was conducting a thorough investigation of the old affairs 5 years ago. I knew that the truth could not be hidden anymore. I didn't want to see Gu Shenyuan's face full of regret anymore, and I didn't want to hear his apology that was 5 years late. His regret is worthless to me. When I needed him the most back then, he chose to believe others. Now that he wants to turn back, why should I stand still and wait for him? The boat slowly left the dock of Suzhou Prefecture. Nianan leaned against my arms and pointed at the town getting farther and farther away and asked, "Mother, are we coming back?" I looked at the shimmering light on the river and smiled gently. We won't come back. Ahead, there are better scenery. My embroidery workshop has already selected a new address in Xuanzhou Prefecture, the first major port in the south. There is a broader world and a huge market connected to overseas. My career and my life have just begun. As for Gu Qingyuan, let him slowly endure in the crematorium. It has nothing to do with me, Su Jinsi anymore.